Have you ever found yourself wide awake at 3 a.m., lying still in the hush of night while the world slumbers around you? If you're in your golden years, this isn't just a random disruption. It could be your body, and perhaps your soul, whispering truths that only silence can reveal. I'm Dr. Ellis Carter, and with over 30 years of experience in geriatric medicine and emotional wellness, I've come to see these early morning awakenings not as a problem to be solved, but as a message to be heard. You see, waking up at 3 a.m. isn't just about poor sleep hygiene or aging hormones. It's about how your body holds memory, how emotions resurface when distractions fade, and how your spirit, in its wisdom, asks for reflection. These moments, often frustrating, can be turned into windows of understanding. They ask, what haven't you resolved? What needs tending inside you? On today's episode of Golden Years Balance, we'll gently explore the science, emotion, and spirituality behind this phenomenon. This isn't about quick fixes or sleep pills. It's about listening, learning, and showing compassion to the person you've become. So make yourself comfortable, pour a warm cup of tea. Let's step into the quiet together. Reason number 1, the melatonin mystery. When the sleep hormone retreats. In the prime of our youth, sleep often came effortlessly. We'd lay our heads on the pillow and, as if by magic, drift into a deep and restorative slumber. Much of that nighttime magic can be attributed to melatonin, a natural hormone produced by the pineal gland in the brain. Often referred to as the sleep hormone, melatonin acts like a conductor of the body's internal orchestra, signaling that it's time to slow down, relax, and prepare for rest. But as the years roll on, that gentle conductor begins to step away from the podium. By the time we reach our 60s, melatonin production can decrease by over 50%. This drop isn't just a number on a lab report, it's something many older adults feel deeply every single night. And what once was a peaceful night's rest can now feel fragmented, restless, and elusive. You may notice that falling asleep becomes more difficult, but for many, staying asleep, especially through the early morning hours, becomes the bigger battle. That persistent 3 a.m. wake-up call? It's not your imagination, it's biology. Let me introduce you to Harold, a patient I've known for over a decade. At 72, Harold led an active, thoughtful life. He wasn't plagued by stress or illness, but nearly every night, like clockwork, he would wake up at 3:15 a.m., fully alert, yet unsure why. He didn't feel anxious, he wasn't in pain. He simply found himself awake, with a mind ready to start the day and a body that longed for just a few more hours of rest. At first, Harold blamed himself. He thought he must be doing something wrong, eating too late, not exercising enough, or perhaps just getting too old to sleep through the night. But when we dug a little deeper, we uncovered something more meaningful. His melatonin rhythm had shifted, and his environment wasn't supporting the natural cues his body needed. Together, we worked on small, intentional changes. Instead of scrolling through his phone or watching late-night TV, Harold began winding down with the soft glow of candlelight, mimicking the sunset's warm tones and signaling to his brain that bedtime was near. He added evening walks, allowing natural twilight to gently coax his circadian rhythm into alignment. He invested in a comfortable sleep mask and unplugged unnecessary electronics that emitted light, even tiny blinks from chargers and alarm clocks. The results weren't instant, but they were profound. Gradually, Harold's sleep became deeper, longer, and more restorative. This might sound simple, but it's rooted in solid science. Melatonin is exquisitely sensitive to light, especially the blue light emitted by screens and artificial bulbs. Even small, seemingly insignificant sources like hallway nightlights or the soft glow of a digital clock can interfere with melatonin release. Our brains evolved to associate darkness with rest and safety. When light lingers, especially during the evening or overnight, the brain gets mixed signals. Should I be alert? Is it still daytime? The result: disrupted melatonin production and broken sleep cycles. That's why your bedroom should become a sanctuary of darkness. Use blackout curtains. Cover or remove electronic lights. Opt for warm, dim lighting in the evening. Let darkness become a healing part of your nightly ritual, not something you resist. Of course, lifestyle changes may not be enough for everyone. In some cases, melatonin supplements, particularly in low-dose, natural doses, can help bridge the gap. But this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Tip: consider natural melatonin supplements only under the guidance of a healthcare provider. While these supplements are available over the counter, they can interact with medications or have unintended effects, especially in older adults. Even herbal sleep aids marketed as natural can influence blood pressure, blood sugar, or liver function. Always discuss these options with your doctor, especially if you're managing chronic conditions or taking prescription medications. Sleep is not just a luxury, it's a cornerstone of well-being. Poor sleep can worsen memory, weaken the immune system, and raise the risk of depression and falls. But the good news is, you're not powerless. Understanding the role of melatonin and how to work with your body's changing rhythms can empower you to take back your nights one gentle step at a time. So if you find yourself waking up at 3 a.m., don't rush to blame yourself. Pause, reflect, and ask, what message is my body trying to send me? Often the answer is simple, it just needs a little help finding the rhythm again. Let that be your starting point. Reason number 2, the shifted clock. Your inner timekeeper evolves. Aging doesn't just bring wisdom, it brings a new rhythm. Somewhere along the journey through our golden years, a quiet transformation takes place deep within our biology. You may not notice it at first. It starts subtly. You begin to feel sleepy earlier in the evening, and then, just as quietly, you begin waking up before the sun even peeks over the horizon. This isn't a coincidence, nor is it something to fear. It's your inner timekeeper gently resetting itself. This natural shift is known as advanced sleep phase syndrome, and it's more common than most people realize. Our circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs sleep, hunger, alertness, and body temperature, begins to change with age. For younger people, the peak alertness period often lands in the late afternoon or early evening, but as we grow older, that peak gradually shifts forward. You may find yourself yawning by 8:30 p.m. and fully awake by 4:30 a.m., not because of stress or insomnia, but because your body's rhythm has evolved. Take Charles, for instance. A retired electrical engineer from Minnesota, Charles spent most of his working life solving complex systems and troubleshooting machinery. But after retiring, he encountered a problem he couldn't fix with tools or logic. He kept waking up at 3 a.m. At first, he worried something was wrong. Was it stress, anxiety, or worse, a medical issue? It wasn't until he read about circadian changes in older adults that things began to make sense. The issue wasn't external, it was internal. His body had simply adjusted to a new rhythm. Once he saw this pattern as a natural biological reset, his anxiety melted away. He stopped resisting the 3 a.m. wake-ups and started gently guiding his routine to meet his body where it was. He delayed bedtime by just 15 to 20 minutes each week. He added small but powerful habits like reading a novel before bed, enjoying a warm shower at 8 p.m., and eating dinner a little later. Within a month, something remarkable happened. Charles began waking up closer to 5 a.m. instead of 3. He no longer felt like a prisoner to his early mornings. He felt in sync with them. His mood improved. His energy was steadier. He had reclaimed his nights without battling his biology. Routines serve as anchors for our internal clock. When we retire, many of the time cues that once structured our day, like a morning commute, work hours, or scheduled meetings, vanish overnight. Without these external cues, the circadian rhythm drifts. The good news? We can reintroduce these anchors on our own terms. Simple actions like eating meals at regular times, exercising in the morning, and engaging in light activity in the evening can all help recalibrate your internal clock. It's not about forcing your body into a strict schedule. It's about gently creating rhythms that your brain recognizes. If you find yourself falling asleep too early and waking up before you'd like, consider building an evening ritual that gradually tells your body, not yet, the night isn't over. This could be something as small as brewing herbal tea, listening to soft music, stretching, or calling a friend. These signals let your brain know it's still time to be awake, not to wind down for sleep just yet. Set up a routine that works for you. Some people find that dimming the lights at 7 p.m. helps signal evening. Others take a warm shower around 8 p.m. or do some light yoga while listening to calming sounds. What matters is consistency and comfort, not perfection. And if you do wake up early, even earlier than you'd prefer, don't panic. Don't reach for your phone or stare at the ceiling in frustration. Instead, have a quiet, relaxing activity ready. a book, a journal, or gentle breathing exercises. This transforms the early morning into a sacred space rather than a source of stress. Your body is not betraying you. It's simply adapting, as it always has, to the stage of life you're in. Just like childhood and adolescence came with their own biological shifts, so does aging. And just as you navigated those earlier transitions with patience and grace, you can meet this one with understanding and curiosity. So, if you find yourself wide awake while the rest of the world sleeps, remember this. It's not a flaw. It's your body whispering to you, this is your new rhythm. And with a little awareness, a few new habits, and a shift in perspective, you can dance to this new rhythm with joy, not resistance. Reason number 3, physical discomfort. Silent interruptions from the body. Sometimes the body speaks in whispers, and 3 a.m. is when we finally hear it. For many older adults, waking in the early hours isn't just about age or stress. It's the body's quiet way of flagging a deeper need. In my years as a physician, I've learned that physical discomfort, often subtle and easy to ignore during the day, becomes unmistakably loud at night. When the world falls silent, your body finds its voice. Pain, dehydration, and the aging body. Chronic pain is one of the most common culprits, whether it's arthritis in the knees, an aching back, or nerve discomfort from diabetes. Pain that's manageable while distracted by daily activity can feel unbearable in the stillness of night. The same goes for something as seemingly minor as mild dehydration. As we age, our sense of thirst dulls. Many older adults unknowingly go to bed slightly dehydrated, enough to trigger muscle cramps, dry mouth, or even increased heart rate during sleep. Then there's restless leg syndrome, RLS, a condition that affects more people than we realize. It causes uncomfortable sensations and an uncontrollable urge to move the legs, often in the evening or during the night. RLS is notoriously disruptive, and it's frequently mistaken for anxiety or just bad sleep habits. The role of internal systems. Sometimes the problem lies within, literally. Acid reflux can cause nighttime awakenings, especially if dinner was heavy or eaten too late. Lying flat allows stomach acid to creep up into the esophagus, triggering a subtle but disruptive sensation. Over time, this can lead to habitual 3 a.m. wake-ups, even before you consciously feel the burn. For men, prostate changes are a common contributor. As the prostate enlarges with age, it presses on the bladder, making nighttime urination more frequent. It's not unusual for men in their 60s and beyond to wake 2 or even 3 times a night to use the bathroom. Though this is often normalized, it's worth discussing with a healthcare provider to ensure it isn't signaling a more serious issue. Women face their own set of challenges. Hormonal changes, particularly after menopause, can increase bladder sensitivity and urinary urgency. Certain medications can also act as diuretics, amplifying the need to urinate at night. These changes aren't always drastic or sudden. Sometimes they sneak in gradually, leaving women wondering why their once solid sleep is now so fragile. Let me tell you about Eleanor, a vibrant 76-year-old widow who came to me frustrated and fatigued. "I don't understand it," she said. "I fall asleep just fine, but I wake up every night at 3 a.m. I don't feel anxious. I'm not in pain. I just wake up." We talked through her daily habits, bedtime routines, and even her dreams. Then I looked closely at her medications. One stood out, a diuretic for blood pressure, taken at 6 p.m. That timing meant the peak effect hit during the night. No wonder her bladder was waking her up. Together, we shifted her medication to the morning and rebalanced her hydration throughout the day, drinking more earlier and tapering off after dinner. Within a week, Eleanor was sleeping through the night again. It wasn't insomnia, it wasn't anxiety. It was her body gently nudging her with feedback. And finally, she listened. It's easy to feel frustrated when sleep becomes fragmented, but waking up isn't failure, it's feedback. Your body is still talking to you, even when your mind wants to rest. Rather than seeing these interruptions as problems to fix, try viewing them as messages to decode. If your legs twitch, your throat burns, or you're waking up for the 3rd time to use the bathroom, don't dismiss it. Reflect on it. What did you eat? Did you hydrate well? Could your medication timing be off? Are you moving enough during the day, or perhaps too much too late? Sometimes your body isn't working against you, it's inviting you to work with it. One of the simplest yet most powerful tools you can use is a sleep journal. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just jot down what time you went to bed and woke up, what and when you ate for dinner, your water intake, when you took medications, any physical symptoms you noticed during the day or night, whether you exercised and at what time. Over time, patterns emerge. Maybe it's the late night cup of tea. Maybe it's that your diuretic needs to be moved to morning. Maybe your mattress isn't supporting your hips the way it used to. Sleep isn't just about rest. It's about relationship with your body, your habits, and your environment. And sometimes the most meaningful conversations happen in the quietest hours. So the next time you wake at 3 a.m., pause before frustration sets in. Breathe. Listen. What is your body trying to say? Reason number 4, lifestyle drift. When the days get quieter, as we move into the later stages of life, a subtle shift often begins to take place, one that many older adults hardly notice until they're waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, wondering why sleep has become such a fragile thing. This shift is known as lifestyle drift, and it occurs when daily routines slowly change in ways that unintentionally disrupt the body's internal clock. Take Walter, for example, a retired accountant who always lived by his calendar. At 74, Walter found that without the demands of a 9-to-5 job, his days grew quieter, more relaxed. And at first, he enjoyed it. He started eating dinner early around 5 p.m. Afterward, he'd settle into his favourite recliner to watch the evening news. But more often than not, he'd drift off by 7 p.m. He thought nothing of it, until he began consistently waking up in the pitch black of early morning, wide awake at 3 a.m. What Walter didn't realise was that his quiet, low-light evenings were sending strong signals to his brain. Without the usual noise, light, or activity, his brain began interpreting these peaceful evenings as cues to wind down for the night. As a result, his body started releasing melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep, much earlier than before, and that early release of melatonin meant he was naturally waking up earlier too. From a medical perspective, this is a common occurrence. Our circadian rhythms, the natural internal processes that regulate the sleep-wake cycle, are highly sensitive to environmental cues, especially light and activity levels. When evenings become dim and uneventful, the brain assumes it's time to sleep. Over time, this trains the body to go to bed earlier and wake up earlier, even if that wasn't the intention. In Walter's case, a few small changes made a big difference. He added a short walk after dinner, even if it was just around the block. He also began using a light therapy box for 20 minutes in the early evening while reading or doing a crossword. These simple adjustments helped delay his melatonin production, shifting his sleep window back to a more comfortable time. Within a few weeks, Walter was falling asleep closer to 10 p.m. and waking at 6 a.m., feeling more refreshed and better aligned with the world around him. This type of lifestyle drift doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process. It can be influenced by retirement, the loss of social engagements, reduced physical activity, or simply the natural slowing down that comes with age. And while there's nothing wrong with slowing down, the key is to maintain balance. Quiet doesn't have to mean sedentary. Peaceful doesn't have to mean passive. So, what can you do if you're finding yourself waking too early or struggling with fragmented sleep? Here are a few practical tips. Avoid napping after dinner. That little snooze in front of the television might feel harmless, but it can shift your sleep cycle earlier without you realizing it. Expose yourself to bright light in the evening. Whether it's natural light from a short outdoor walk or a specialized light box, evening light helps signal your brain that it's not bedtime yet. Keep evenings gently active. Engage in light conversation, play a board game, call a friend, or work on a hobby that keeps your mind engaged but not overstimulated. Dim your bedroom lights only when you're truly ready to wind down. Keep your environment gently lit until about an hour before bed. And perhaps most importantly, don't be too hard on yourself if your sleep patterns are changing. Aging brings with it a new rhythm, and part of the journey is learning how to dance to that new beat. The goal isn't to force your body into a rigid schedule, but to gently guide it, giving it the signals it needs to find a healthy, satisfying pattern. Lifestyle drift may be subtle, but it can have a profound impact on your overall well-being. With just a bit of awareness and a few mindful choices, you can reclaim your evenings, enjoy deeper rest, and wake up feeling more in tune with your day. Remember, your later years aren't just about slowing down. They're about living deliberately, and that includes how and when you sleep. Reason number 5, emotional echoes, the soul's quiet voice. Sometimes it's not your body that wakes you at 3 a.m., it's your heart. In the hush of early morning when the world is still and the darkness cradles us like a blanket, the soul stirs. The noise of the day, the duties, the television, the conversations, all are gone. What remains is what's always been there underneath it all. The emotions we carry, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, but always present. As we age, our lives naturally slow, but our emotions do not retire. In fact, the slowing of time often creates space for emotional truth to rise. It may come softly, a memory of a lost loved one, a pang of regret, a forgotten joy, or a word we wish we had spoken. For many older adults, these moments come in the quiet hours before dawn, when the world sleeps and the soul finally gets a chance to speak. Gloria's 80 years old. Every night around 3 a.m., she would wake up with a deep ache in her chest. It wasn't pain in the medical sense, but something harder to describe. She would lie still in the dark, the image of her late husband, Charles, rising in her mind. They were married for 52 years. He had passed 5 years ago. She thought she had moved on, or at least found peace. But in the silence of night, memories returned. The sound of his laughter, the way he held her hand during movies, the unfinished conversations. For a long time, she told no one. She assumed it was insomnia or aging. Then one night, instead of turning on the TV or scrolling through her phone, she reached for an old notebook. She began to write. There were no rules, no structure, just feelings, raw, unfiltered, honest. She wrote to him, about him, and sometimes even as him. And slowly, night after night, the ache lessened. The 3 a.m. hour became not a time of sadness, but of gentle remembrance. She began to sleep better, not because she stopped missing him, but because she finally allowed her soul to speak. Aging is not just a physical process. It's a spiritual and emotional journey. As the body slows, the heart often becomes louder, not with noise, but with meaning. The early morning hours, far from being a nuisance, can be seen as a sacred invitation. This is not insomnia. This is the soul seeking connection. There's a common misconception that emotions should be tucked away as we grow older, that crying is a weakness, or longing is unnecessary. But emotional integration is not about suppression. It's about honouring the echoes of our past, listening to the voice of our younger selves, and healing in the now. You are not broken if you feel sadness. You are not alone if you remember too much at night. You are human, and these moments, however hard they feel, are gifts. They remind us we have loved, we have lived, and we still carry the capacity for deep, meaningful connection. Keep a journal by your bedside. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't even have to make sense. Don't worry about punctuation or spelling. This isn't a task, it's a release. When you wake at 3 a.m., instead of turning on a light or fighting the wakefulness, try picking up your pen. Write about what you feel, even if you don't know what that is yet. Write about the memory that returned or the dream you just had. Write like no one will read it, because no one has to. Let the page be your companion. Let the ink carry your burdens. Some nights you'll write one line, other nights you'll fill a page. But over time, this simple act becomes a practice of self-love, a ritual of healing. There is a voice within each of us that only speaks when the world is silent. It is the voice of truth, of memory, of unresolved feelings and lingering joys. In youth, we often outrun it. In age, we finally slow down enough to hear it. Listen closely. What feels like insomnia may be a doorway, not to frustration, but to understanding. What feels like loneliness may actually be longing for something sacred, not gone, but simply waiting to be acknowledged. At Golden Years Balance, we believe health isn't a problem to fix. It's a lifelong journey to understand and embrace. Your midnight awakenings are not setbacks. They are signals, maybe even blessings. If this video resonated with you, if it brought you comfort or clarity, we'd love to hear from you. What time do you usually wake up? What thoughts visit you in those early morning hours? Please like this video, share it with someone who needs peace today, and subscribe to Golden Years Balance for more gentle, wise content about aging, wellness, and spiritual reflection. Until next time, may your 3 a.m. moments become your soul's softest whispers.